Then Betty decided to make things even worse for herself. Time to explore real men. Remember how she kept saying she was documenting everything for the lawsuit? Chloe supposedly completely lost against when our smoking hot neighbor showed interest in me. She posted a few months later review for my electrical papers, delivered the final claiming I was unprofessional and unreliable. Before we get into today's story, for her, I need to ask for a little help. Taken seriously. We've noticed the channel has been losing she was some careless enough lately. To post it under her real name. Is one of the easiest ways you can support us. My lawyer immediately sent her a cease and desist letter. And it helps us keep bringing you more stories. She deleted the review within hours. Your support really means a lot. But not before Hunter had let's keep the channel growing together. By Saturday, I was done now. Let's get into the story. A few days later, Detective Morrison called to let me know Chloe had returned most of my tools to the police station. She jumped claiming it had all been a misunderstanding about shared property. But then she completely lost her mind. He asked if I still wanted to move forward with the charges. Flirting with me. I didn't hesitate. I told him I'm just doing what you wanted, especially since she also forged my signature on the Craigslist. It doesn't count for my Harley. It's someone we know. He agreed that at that point I stopped arguing the case. I decided to play the long game for the following Friday. I let her have her fun. Chloe showed up with an expensive attorney and looked like she wanted the floor to swallow. Here's how it all went down. Her lawyer tried to convince the court that everything was simply a relationship dispute that had gotten out of hand. It's good money if you can handle the solitude. Until a few days later, I thought my marriage to Jen privately and tried to negotiate. We'd been together for 10 years and reimbursement for my legal fees. I bought my house and asked me to drop the criminal case. It's a 3-bedroom, I made my position 2-bath house built in Chloe the 90s. Could plead guilty. I paid $210,000 for it in 2015 and stay out of my life. And now forever. It's worth close to $450,000. I wasn't interested in dropping the charges. When Jen and I first got together, and about 5 minutes later, I received a Venmo payment for $1,847. I'd be gone for days driving routes, then supposedly covering the tools, and we had a system that worked. It was far too little at an insurance office and handled the cooking. Preliminary hearing, while I took care of repairs. Chloe arrived wearing what looked like a simple arrangement, and it made sense with my schedule. The judge asked me for proof that the property belonged to me, and for a long time I thought we were both fine along with insurance. Our life probably wasn't Instagram worthy. When the judge asked Chloe for any evidence showing the tools had been gifts, we'd go camping in the property, spend time with a small quietly admitted they had watch movies on weekends. The outcome was and just do normal stuff together. She pleaded guilty. I genuinely thought we were on the same page. 1 year of what marriage meant was fined $2,500, loyalty, and building to pay full restitution. Then things started changing. Became part of her permanent record. 38. As it turned out, actions really do have consequences. Divorce. That conviction triggered another problem and was always chasing some new guy or some new life criminal convictions. She was the kind of person who posted inspirational quotes learned about all over social media while her own life questioning her judgment and professionalism. Suddenly, her recent promotion was officially revoked, filling and she was transferred into a department nobody wanted. Around the same time, and how life was too short her with eviction papers because I wasn't repeated noise complaints. I could see the police investigation violated multiple terms of the lease. Jen went from being her 30 days to move out, acting like she was missing out on some huge adventure to haunt her. She started following lifestyle and defamation lawsuits, women in their 30s and 40s who damages for the harm done to my time and money, and were her insurance company eventually settled for $8,000. After that, instead of I started noticing even more changes. Then canceled her coverage. First, they were small. A few weeks later, she complained about she lost her job as well. She made comments about how I wouldn't impose about dealing with difficult people and unprofessional contractors. It was strange hearing the ongoing defamation considering the job she was and the company decided she had violated its social media and professional conduct. She started rolling her eyes whenever I talked about came down for retirement or making improvements during their lease renewal. Then she began making weird comments about other couples we knew. She'd racked up $47,000 Did you know Mike and Sarah are in credit card debt? Apparently, she'd been financing her lifestyle through some issues with sexual compatibility. When he casually dropped comments she tried to convince him during debt as if they were completely normal conversation topics, and that he should help pay it off. 3 months ago, Derek packed his things quit her job moved out even discussing it with me. Without his income, I need to find myself. Brooke couldn't even keep up. She announced one night while I was exhausted. She ended up selling her 14-hour drive, moving back in with insurance job is killing my soul. Taking a second job bartending at night. I meant for more. The influencer image she'd worked so hard to project disappeared What's the plan? Almost overnight. Another job. But even that wasn't the biggest something collapse. Reasonable. Bianca managed I need some time to explore my options. Carol hadn't just walked away from the relationship. Like she was a recent college graduate. He'd been quietly documenting every woman with bills. From the constant I've been thinking about something that allows me to express my restaurant bills. Express yourself on somebody else's dime. I thought he handed all of it to a friend who worked in family law. We had enough savings. Attorney helped him obtain a restraining order. And I figured maybe some time off would help her reset. But once apparently, that restraining order was on Bianca's record. Through Instagram, she failed Vanessa for endless for a new marketing job she was trying to land. She'd already been unemployed for splitting responsibilities was through her savings, trying to keep up appearances. I'd come home to a dirty house. Things got even worse when her parents found out about the legal problems. Dishes were piled up in the sink. Apparently, laundry was untouched. Getting served with court papers somehow she always found in their time to buy new clothes wasn't the and get her nails done twice a week. The worst update I heard was that she was working at a call center my own house and feeling like I was in a tiny studio apartment. Like I was interrupting her real life. Group completely She'd be on the phone with Vanessa after Chloe lost both her promotion and she'd look at me her apartment. Oh, you're back. She could no longer before turning right back to her conversation. Betty was drowning when I asked if she could at least load the dishwasher. She actually was juggling 2 jobs housework just to stay beneath me. And Bianca was dealing with the fallout from the restraining order. It's so restrictive to my growth. They started blaming each other out of everything. I just started doing everything Chloe of ruining all their my own meals by dating down. Cleaned the house. Betty and did my own laundry she'd only been telling the truth and claimed everyone else was just too sensitive. But mentally, Brooke eventually admitted they had more time with my buddies at the garage, where we worked on Project Quiet. I had dinner invitation Camaro that I'd been restoring 3 years of fake friendship disappeared the moment none of them nothing cleared my head like working on their identities around. With a car, you don't have to guess what's wrong. Life finally started moving in the right direction. Fix it. I moved into a new place in the Crossroads district. If only relationships were finished restoring my shovel head. Then the fight picked up enough side jobs to buy another project. I'd point out that Jen wasn't contributing, and she'd call me controlling and financially abusive. I'd remind her about the agreement we'd always had, and she'd tell me agreements evolve and that I needed to get with the times. If I asked about her job search, things even worse, she'd accuse me of not supporting her journey. Remember how she kept saying so there I was one evening, everything coming home from a 3-day haul, supposedly thinking it was just another Tuesday. Instead of letting it go, me to sit down she posted a fake Google review for my electrical business when they're about to drop claiming I was unprofessional and unreliable. She started. Unfortunately for her, business defamation is taken seriously. I've been doing a lot of thinking about us. And she was careless enough to post it under her real name with her Facebook profile attached. I think it's time we immediately sent her a cease and desist letter. Looking completely serious. She deleted the review within hours. Explore, but not before keeping my voice and screenshots for evidence. Explored what? By Saturday, I was done playing nice. She gave me a few days later. Detective Morrison called to let me know Chloe had returned most of my tools to the police station. My brain basically claiming it had all been a misunderstanding about shared property. The same woman who had once to move forward because I mentioned that a female truck stop cashier had been friendly to me. I told him absolutely, and now she was sitting there casually suggesting my signature on the Craigslist like she was asking if I wanted to try a new restaurant. That added a fraud charge to the case. The arraignment was scheduled for the following Friday. Completely. Chloe showed up with an expensive attorney and there was the strange brightness she wanted the floor to swallow. I think it could be really liberating. Her lawyer tried to convince the court that everything was simply a relationship dispute that had gotten out of hand. New people. But the prosecutor wasn't buying it. It's all above board. A few days later, this marriage, her attorney called me privately and tried to negotiate others. He offered my first reaction was anger, reimbursement for my legal fees, and asked me to drop the criminal case. So you want my position other guys? Chloe could without saying you want to cheat, pay full restitution. I said flatly, and stay out of my life forever. She stammered. I wasn't interested in freedom and growth for both of us. He hung up. I want to see other men later. I received a Venmo payment for $1,847. Like that supposedly covering the you and Vanessa keep talking about. It was far too little and far too late. Bingo. At the preliminary hearing, this Matt guy Chloe arrived wearing what looked about how inspiring his journey was and looked physically how he quit his corporate job to become a fitness instructor that the property belonged and how he was really connecting with his receipts going back 6 years along with insurance photos whatever the hell that meant. When the judge asked for about an hour any going around showing the tools again and again or shared property, she wanted new experiences. Her attorney quietly admitted I pointed out that vows were supposed to mean straightforward. She said I pleaded guilty to misdemeanor theft. Received I reminded her that she used to value loyalty. $2,500. Round and round we went. Ordered to pay full restitution. She kept throwing around phrases and the conviction like evolving relationship models, record, ethical non-monogamy, as it turned out, actions and really do have capacity for connection. That conviction like triggered another problem because her employer required employees Meanwhile, I was thinking about criminal mortgage payments within 30 days. Risks. Once finally I learned about the theft case, I decided to play the long judgment and professionalism. Okay, Jen, her recent promotion was officially revoked. Okay. And she was transferred into a department nobody wanted. If that's around the same time, Mr. Wayne served her with eviction papers someone who has spent repeated noise complaints for a war and the police investigation violated multiple terms of the lease. She was suspicious, giving her 30 days to move out. Betty's fake review also came back to haunt her. That would make my next attorney filed a defamation lawsuit seeking $15,000 into damages for the harm done to my business. Like she just won something. Her insurance company eventually settled for $8,000 instead of taking the case to trial, bouncing in her seat. Then canceled her coverage. This is going to be amazing for us. A few weeks later, we should set some ground rules as well. Someone in HR connected her LinkedIn posts about dealing with difficult people and unprofessional contractors. We should be honest about the ongoing defamation case. No lying. And the company decided she had violated its social media and professional conduct policies, like date nights. Brooke's downfall came down to simple math. I said during their lease renewal, maybe we start with her boyfriend Derek pulled her credit report and discovered or emotional she'd racked up other $47,000. I just kept nodding while I watched her lay out financing her lifestyle. Obviously borrowed money for 2 years. She probably already had the CrossFit. She tried to convince him the debt was an investment in their future together, and that he should help pay it off. When were you thinking of starting? Derek packed his things and moved out. She looked away for a second. Without his income, there's a gym social couldn't even keep up with the minimum payments. Of course there was. She ended up selling her car, moving back in with roommates. I've got a 3-day haul taking a second job anyway at night. She looked the influencer image and almost disappointed so hard how easy this disappeared almost she overnight. Had clearly rehearsed, but even that in her wasn't head the biggest. Expected collapse. Me to fight harder. Bianca managed to maybe even everyone. Wanted me to. Terrell hadn't 6 weeks walked away from the relationship. Jen threw herself into her new lifestyle. He'd been quietly documenting everything, while I responded to her constant Venmo requests and demands for expensive gifts to the restaurant bills. I never asked she'd run up expecting him to pay. That drove her crazy. He handed all of it to a friend who worked in family law. It was like watching someone live out a fantasy. Helped him obtain a restraining order based on emotional and financial manipulation. When really it was about wanting to have sex with someone new. Bianca's record security blanket. She failed the background check. Meanwhile, I was quietly getting my house in order. She'd already been unemployed for 6 weeks, opened a new account and had burned through her savings and started moving small amounts of money over. Things got even worse when her parents found out about the legal myself a safety net. Supporting her. I also documented everything happening in our marriage in a password while living in their basement and scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney during one of my longer hauls. The last update I heard was that she was working at a call center in Independence. I started living alone in a tiny studio cardio, lost 15 pounds of friend group, completely gaining muscle, and generally began taking better care of promotion and her apartment. I figured that if I was going to no longer bankroll their expensive I might as well become the best Betty was drowning in legal bills. The attorney Mike had clearly seen situations Brooke like was juggling 2 jobs just to stay afloat. And Bianca was dealing with the fallout from the restraining order. She wants to have her cake before and eat it too. They started blaming each other for everything, so that's protected. Bianca accused Chloe of ruining all their lives by documenting everything. Betty insisted she'd only been telling the truth. Mike was a no-nonsense guy and was just too sensitive. Ironically, eventually admitted they had all been toxic influences. He said his own experiences had actually made him better at his job. The dinner invitation recognize the patterns. After 3 years of fake friendship, women like your wife, none of them could afford the lifestyle leaning back and built their identities around. Think they've got it all figured out. Life think they can have the freedom of being single while keeping the security of being married. In the Crossroads district. It doesn't work that way. Finished restoring my shovelhead advice and picked up enough side jobs to buy another project. Let Jen have her fun and quietly prepared for what I knew was coming. About 2 months into this arrangement, the other shoe dropped. There was a neighbor named Amanda, to make things even worse for herself, who lived 2 doors down. Remember how she kept saying she was documenting everything, had that fitness instructor look, supposedly planned and was almost always wearing yoga pants. Instead of letting it go, to Jen, Amanda had been too friendly with me for my electrical business, and Jen had made claiming I was unprofessional and unreliable. Amanda would sometimes stop and chat with me while I was working on my truck taken seriously in Missouri. It was always simple, and she was careless enough to post it under her real name with her Facebook profile. I had always kept things strictly neighborly. Immediately sent her a cease and desist letter. Amanda was single. She deleted the review within hours, taught fitness classes, but not before Hunter had taken screenshots one Saturday. For evidence. I was changing the oil in my truck when Amanda walked over. A few days later, "Hey neighbor," Detective Morrison called to let me know Chloe had returned most of my toolbox to the police station. "Haven't seen you around claiming it had all been a misunderstanding. Been on the road a lot. Property." I said. He asked if I still wanted to move forward with the charges. She looked good. I didn't hesitate. A tank top and shorts. I told him absolutely. And there was something different especially about her since she'd also forged my signature. It was more direct, Craigslist more intentional for my Harley. So he agreed that I heard through the grapevine that you and Jen have some kind of arrangement now for the following Friday. I looked up at her. Chloe showed up with an expensive attorney small and looked like she wanted Jen's the floor been seen around with that guy a few times. Her lawyer tried to convince the court that everything was simply a relationship dispute. Just curious if it goes both ways. But the prosecutor wasn't buying it. Jen's car days later pulled into the driveway. Her attorney called me the look on her face and tried to negotiate. Amanda talking he offered to me compensation, reimbursement for my legal fees, practically rushed and asked me to drop the criminal case. What's going on? I made my position clear. Innocently. Chloe could just saying hi to Dave. Pay full restitution, Jen said, and stay out of my life between the two of us. I wasn't interested in dropping the charges. Can I talk to you inside for a minute? He hung up. The second about we were 5 minutes later, I received a Venmo payment for $1,847. You and Amanda supposedly covering we were just talking and listing fees. I said calmly. It was far too little we've done and far for years. Too late. At the preliminary hearing, she was practically undressing what looked with like a borrowed business suit. I raised an eyebrow, physically sick. And that's a problem. The judge asked me for proof because that the property belonged to me. The woman I've been telling you for years has 6 years along with insurance photos against the counter. Everything. When the judge had an open marriage, any evidence showing isn't that what you wanted to explore? Shared property. Her face went through quietly admitted they had nothing. The outcome was straightforward. Amanda is someone she pleaded guilty to misdemeanor theft. It would be weird and 1 year of probation. So your CrossFit instructor is fine, but my neighbor isn't full restitution. Interesting. And the conviction became part of her permanent record. As it turned out, actions really do have consequences. No emotions. That conviction triggered and Amanda wouldn't because her employer required employees to report criminal convictions within 30 days. Jen was practically yelling by learned about the theft case, but I stayed perfectly calm. They started questioning her judgment your problem isn't that I might hook up with someone else. Her recent promotion was officially revoked. Your problem is that it might be someone who actually likes me. Nobody wanted. That's not what I said. Around the same time, it's exactly what you served her with eviction papers. You're fine with me having meaningless complaints and the police investigation violated. I connect with someone who might actually care about me. Giving her 30 days. The argument continued. Betty's fake review also and her position kept changing. My attorney filed a defamation lawsuit because she was $15,000. Then it was because she was supposedly Jen's enemy. Her insurance company eventually settled. Then it became because open marriages were supposed to be about new experiences, then canceled her coverage afterward. Eventually, I just walked out and went to the garage. She lost her job as well. I spent the rest of the day in HR connected her LinkedIn posts about dealing with difficult people and unprofessional contractors. To the ongoing continued her exploration with and the company decided she had violated other social media and professional conduct. Meanwhile, I was under surveillance. Downfall came down. She started coming home early during their lease renewal when I was off. Her boyfriend Derek. She began checking my phone and when she thought I was asleep. She'd racked up and even tried to get the password to my new email account. She'd been financing her lifestyle with borrowed money, which only made her more paranoid. When he confronted her, the emptier the treasure chest was, she tried to convince him the debt the more convinced she became that I had hidden the real goods and that he should help pay it off. Classic Derek projection. Things and she was acting shady, so in her mind, without his income, I obviously had to be doing couldn't the same even thing. Keep up with the at minimum that point, payments. My focus shifted. She ended up selling her car, improving moving myself. Back in with roommates. I was hitting the gym 5 days a second job, bartending, reading books about finance, the influencer image during my she'd worked so hard to project and reconnecting with old friends. I had gradually lost touch. But even that wasn't the biggest collapse. I finally had actual Bianca managed to top everyone. Honestly. Terrell I was in the best shape away from the relationship. I had dropped from 215 to 185 everything and was bench pressing more than I had in my 20s and demands. There was something therapeutic to the restaurant pushing heavy weight. She'd run everything else in her life felt out of control. He handed all of it to a friend who worked in family law. At least you can add another attorney helped him obtain a restraining order. My divorce lawyer had basically become my unofficial buddy by then. Once that restraining order was on Bianca's long stretches of highway, she failed the background check him on whatever marketing job she was trying to land. And he'd remind me to stay the course. Been unemployed for 6 weeks and don't engage through her savings, dig her trying to keep up appearances. Then Amanda made things got even worse when her parents found out about the legal problems. Having a small barbecue this weekend. Apparently, just a few neighbors served with court papers should come while living in their basement. Jen too, of course, wasn't the temporary. I showed Jen the message, and honestly, the last update I heard was that she was working at a call center in Independence and living alone, just trying to get a tiny studio apartment. Maybe I want to go. The friend group completely fell apart. It's good food. After Chloe lost both her normal social and her apartment. While she could no longer bankroll in her bikini, expensive nights I don't out. Think so. Betty was drowning in legal bills. Interesting how you get to go on actual dates with other men. Was juggling 2 jobs. I can't even attend a neighborhood barbecue. And Bianca was dealing with the fallout from the restraining order. And you know it's different before long. They started blaming each other without admitting the hypocrisy. Bianca accused Chloe of ruining that all their lives and that I was being deliberately obtuse. Betty insisted she'd only been telling the truth and claimed everyone else was just too sensitive. It turned out to be exactly what Amanda had described. They had all been toxic influences on each other. Good food, their group chats went quiet, and a completely dinner invitation stopped. Amanda and 3 years of fake friendship disappeared the moment none of them could afford the lifestyle they had built. One of the other neighbors around. An older guy named Frank who had lived in the neighborhood moving in the right direction. Pulled me aside. I moved into a new place in the Crossroads district. He said, finished restoring my shovel head. Went through something similar with my first wife back in '92. These open marriage things never work out the way they're pitched. Someone always has an agenda. Frank had one of those weathered faces that looked like it had seen everything. He was a Vietnam vet, retired now, but still built like he could handle himself. He was the kind of guy who would give you the shirt off his back. But he also wouldn't hesitate to tell you when you were being an idiot. "How'd yours end?" I asked. He chuckled. "Caught her with my so-called best friend. Turns out the open part was just for her, not for me. Classic bait and switch." He took a sip of his drink. "Divorced her. Lost the house because I didn't know any better back then. Best thing that ever happened to me, though. Married Helen 6 years later. Been together 30 years now. When I got home, Jen was waiting for me." "Did you fuck her?" "Excuse me? Amanda, did you fuck her? Don't lie to me." I stared at her for a second. "Wait, why would that be a problem for you? Didn't we open our marriage?" "Amanda is the problem." "Yeah, sure." She was boiling. She even checked my clothes for perfume. "What the fuck are you doing? Seriously, sniffing?" The irony was almost impossible to miss. She was searching me for evidence of cheating while she had hickeys of her own and wasn't even bothering to hide them. "Stop lying to me. Dear Lord." The next day, Vanessa showed up at the house while Jen was out with one of her guys. "Just happened to stop by. Dave," she said as she walked in without even waiting for an invitation. "We need to talk." "About what?" I asked, not bothering to get up from the couch. "About what you're doing to Jen. She's a mess." I actually laughed. "What I'm doing to Jen? That's rich." She wanted to open the relationship to improve things between us, to add some spice, not so she could chase the first guy who showed interest. Vanessa sat down without being invited. "Jen cares about you. She's just trying to find herself in other guys' beds. Don't be crude. This was supposed to be a mutual growth experience." "Mutual?" I repeated. "So why is it a problem that I went to a neighborhood barbecue?" "Because your intentions weren't pure. You were trying to hurt Jen by eating a hamburger." Vanessa sighed dramatically. "You're being deliberately thick. Jen knows Amanda has had a thing for you for years. It's disrespectful." "And Jen screwing CrossFit Matt isn't disrespectful?" "That's different. That's just physical. There's no history there. Same BS, different messenger." I stood up. "Vanessa, with all due respect, which is none. This is between me and Jen. You encouraged her to find herself and open our marriage. So don't act surprised when things don't play out exactly the way you imagined." That night, Jen tried a different approach. She came home wearing next to nothing and made an obvious attempt to seduce me. I wasn't interested. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I thought we could reconnect." "I'm not in the mood," I said. "Is this about her?" she demanded, and the seductive act disappeared instantly. "No, it's about me not being in the mood. You're punishing me." I agreed to exactly what you wanted. For months into our open marriage, I was documenting everything. Every argument about her double standards, every time she came home late after being with another guy, and every dollar she spent from our joint account on her new lifestyle, including clothes, dinners, and hotel rooms. I had also created a separate email account she didn't know about, and I forwarded all our text conversations there, along with screenshots of her social media posts. She would write vague crap about finding herself and exploring new connections, then turn around and complain about trust issues and emotional betrayal whenever she was talking about me. By then, the mental separation was complete. I looked at her like she was a stranger. About 3 months into the arrangement, I came home unexpectedly early from a route one night and found Jen and Vanessa sitting at our kitchen table with a bottle of seltzer water between them, talking about what sounded a lot like my financial execution. "Just need to figure out how to get your name on the deed somehow," Vanessa was saying, "or at least establish that you've contributed significantly to its value." I quietly backed out, then made a point of coming inside loudly a minute later. They immediately changed the subject, but the damage was already done. These weren't just two sisters exploring modern relationship structures. This was a coordinated effort to take me for everything I had. My lawyer was building a solid case. In our state, adultery didn't matter much when it came to divorce, but financial irresponsibility and abandonment did, and Jen was checking both boxes. She had quit her job, contributed nothing to the household, and spent our money freely. Meanwhile, I was paying the mortgage on my premarital home, covering all the bills, and still handling the maintenance and cleaning. It was classic abandonment of marital duties. But I kept my cool. I didn't confront her, and I didn't do anything that might unnecessarily rock the boat. I just quietly moved forward and prepared for what was coming. At the same time, my physical transformation kept moving in the right direction. My confidence was through the roof compared to where I'd started. My clothes fit better, my posture had improved, and even my boss noticed the difference. "Whatever's going on with you," he told me once, "keep doing it. You're looking good and working better than ever." Amanda had also become an unexpected ally. Not romantically, but because she could see through Jen's BS. "She was at the coffee shop yesterday," Amanda texted me during a haul to Cincinnati, "with some guy acting all coupley. Then she had the nerve to give me a dirty look when she saw me." Jen was basically living a double life, the devoted wife when it suited her and the single party girl when it didn't. I also installed security cameras in the common areas of the house. It was completely legal since the property was mine, and I didn't tell Jen about them. The cameras caught her bringing guys over while I was on the road, something she had specifically said she wouldn't do. "Our bed is our space," she had claimed when we first set the rules. Apparently, that rule only applied to me. The cameras also caught her going through my desk drawers, checking my mail and searching for God knows what. Probably financial documents, or maybe evidence of my own supposed indiscretions that she could use against me. I also overheard her and Vanessa badmouthing me in my own living room while discussing how they planned to handle me and what they would do with the house when the time came, as if it would ever belong to her. "I just need to keep him pacified until I figure out my next move," Jen said. "Matt's fun, but he's not exactly husband material, and I need to be smart about this house. It's worth a fortune now with the market the way it is." They continued discussing how Jen might claim partial ownership of the house even though it was my premarital asset. Vanessa suggested that Jen claim she had contributed significantly to its upkeep and improvements, which was laughable considering she had never even changed a light bulb. I sent the recording to my lawyer. He was practically gleeful. "This is gold," he said. "Clear evidence of intent to defraud. Keep recording." So I did. Every conversation, every fight, every lie, all of it was documented, saved, and sent to my lawyer. Meanwhile, my exit strategy was taking shape. I secured a storage unit for my important possessions, including family heirlooms, documents, the small gun collection my grandfather had left me, and anything else that couldn't be replaced or that I didn't want to risk losing in the inevitable chaos of separation. I had also transferred about 60% of our joint savings into my new account. It wasn't enough to be considered hiding assets, but it was enough to make sure I wouldn't be left high and dry if Jen suddenly decided to clean out the accounts. I was waiting for my opportunity with Jen, and I knew it was coming soon. 6 months into our open marriage, things were reaching a breaking point. Jen was getting sloppy. She stayed out all night, barely bothered to lie about where she had been, and spent money like water. I had strategically moved most of our joint funds into my separate account, leaving enough for the bills and basic expenses, along with a healthy buffer she could burn through on brunches and hotel rendezvous. It was just enough to avoid raising suspicion. She hadn't even checked the balance once in months. She was too busy finding herself to look at bank statements or question where the money was coming from, especially since she wasn't working. Then one night, everything changed. I came home from a 3-day haul and found Jen and CrossFit Matt sitting in our living room, drinking and looking completely comfortable. "Dave," she said with fake brightness. "You remember Matt?" Matt looked uncomfortable but tried to play it cool. "Hey man, good to finally meet you properly." He was exactly what I expected. Mid-30s, expensive haircut, the kind of muscles that came from focusing on mirror muscles while skipping leg day, and one of those tech fabric shirts that probably cost $80 but was basically just polyester. Seeing Matt sitting there with his feet up on my couch was bad enough, but then I watched him pour my birthday Lagavulin into a solo cup. That was the final straw. I dropped my duffel bag down. "You're drinking my Lagavulin." Jen waved dismissively. "Don't be petty. I bought that bottle." She hadn't. It was a birthday gift from my brother that she had watched me open just the month before. But that wasn't even the main issue. "You brought him to our house," I said flatly. That was one of your rules. No bringing people to our home. She rolled her eyes. I think we're past that now. It's been 6 months. The rules evolve just like they evolved about Amanda. Matt looked between us, clearly realizing there was more tension here than he had expected. Maybe I should go. No, stay, Jen insisted, putting her hand on his arm. Dave's just being dramatic. This is my house too. Something in me snapped at that moment. I was done. Actually, I said calmly, it's not. Excuse me? Jen's eyes narrowed. This house isn't yours. It never was. I bought it before we were married. You've contributed nothing to the mortgage, taxes, or upkeep. Legally, you're a tenant at best. Her face flushed with anger. How dare you? We're married. What's yours is mine. That's not how premarital assets work in this state, I said. But I'm sure Vanessa told you that when you were discussing how to take my house when the time comes. Jen's face went completely white. Matt looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. What are you talking about? She stammered. I heard you. You and Vanessa planning your next move. Discussing how to claim my house. Calling me a sucker. You were spying on me? She shrieked. Not spying. Protecting my assets from someone who explicitly stated her intention to take them. Matt stood up. I'm leaving. This is not what you said it was, Jen. She ignored him and kept her attention on me. You've been planning this all along. You agreed to the open marriage just to trap me. I actually laughed. Trap you into what? Sleeping with other men, having your sister over to plot against me, bringing your buddy to my house to drink my whiskey? Yeah. What an elaborate trap. Matt was already heading toward the door. Smart guy. Don't you dare leave. Jen yelled after him. This isn't about you. But he was gone. At least he had enough sense to recognize a complete mess when he saw one. Jen turned back to me. You've ruined everything. This was working fine until you got all possessive and weird. Working fine for who exactly? You get to screw around while I work 60 hours a week to pay for everything. You get to bring men to my house while I can't even talk to a neighbor without being accused of cheating. That's your definition of working fine. I never cheated. We had an agreement. An agreement you unilaterally changed whenever it suited you. She tried a different angle then, suddenly becoming teary-eyed. I just needed to find myself, Dave. I was lost. This was never about not loving you. Save it, I said. I've watched you find yourself for 6 months. Turns out what you found was that you like sleeping with other guys while having a stable provider at home. Well, that arrangement is over. What does that mean? She asked, suddenly wary. It means I'm done. I've been done for months. I've just been waiting for the right time. The right time for what? Her voice had gone small. To end this farce of a marriage.
She stared at me for a moment, then her expression hardened. Fine, if that's what you want. But don't think I'm walking away with nothing. I know my rights. Half this house is mine. Half your pension. Half of everything. I smiled. We'll see about that. I crashed at a motel that night. By morning, I was on the phone with my lawyer. It's time, I told him. She brought one of her guys to my house and was drinking my stuff. He was ready. The papers were already prepared, and everything was organized to maximize my position and minimize her claims. I headed back to the house to grab another round of clothes before getting back on the road. Jen was waiting for me like she'd been standing there all night, with red eyes, a messy bun, and, of course, Vanessa lurking nearby like her personal attack dog. Suddenly, they were both interested in being civil. Jen wanted to talk about the next steps. Apparently, she and Vanessa had already been looking into divorce attorneys, and now their plan was to handle everything amicably. Their words, not mine. Vanessa even had the nerve to suggest that Jen deserved at least 60 or 70% of everything because, according to her, I was clearly the one breaking the marriage contract. It was pure delusion with absolutely no legal basis, but they both nodded along like it was established law. Jen acted like she deserved a piece of everything, claiming she had contributed simply by being present, emotionally supportive, and all the other things that were apparently part of her defense. Vanessa doubled down, saying Jen had been the backbone of the household. I didn't even bother arguing, because there was no point. The reality was simple. Jen didn't clean, didn't work, and didn't maintain anything. Every time I came home from a haul, the place looked like a crime scene. I handled the cleaning, the bills, the yard, everything. Name one thing you did in the last 6 months, I said calmly. Silence. She couldn't name a single useful thing she had done during those 6 months. Her defense came down to emotional labor and some vague nonsense about presence and vibes. Here's what's going to happen, I said as I zipped up my duffel. I'm going on my scheduled haul. When I get back in 3 days, I expect you to be making arrangements to move out. What? I'm not going anywhere, Jen declared. This is my home, too. It's not. And I think you'll find the courts agree with me. We'll see about that, Vanessa said smugly. My friend Rachel is a divorce attorney. Wives get half regardless of whose name is on the deed. Your friend Rachel sounds like a shitty attorney, I replied. But hey, hire her. Should make this easier for me. I left them standing there, both completely convinced they held all the cards. The level of delusion was almost sad. The 3 days I spent on the road gave me plenty of time to prepare for what was coming. My lawyer filed the divorce papers, detailing Jen's abandonment of her marital duties, her financial irresponsibility, and her explicit statements about wanting to take my premarital assets. He also filed for an emergency hearing regarding occupancy of the house, using the security footage of Jen bringing another man home as evidence that her continued presence would be detrimental to the petitioner's well-being and property. When I returned from my haul, Jen and Vanessa were waiting with a document of their own. It was a handwritten list of demands. Dave acknowledges 50% ownership of the house, pays spousal support of $3,000 per month for 5 years, transfers 50% of his 401k to Jen, covers all of Jen's legal fees, and provides health insurance for Jen for 3 years after the divorce. This is our starting position, Vanessa said, sounding like some hotshot negotiator. We're willing to be reasonable if you are. I scanned the list and handed it back. Yeah, nope. What do you mean, no? Jen asked. That's not how this works. Vanessa snapped, her face reddening. You think you can just throw Jen away after she gave you the best years of her life? You're pathetic. Actually, this is how it works. I pulled out my own envelope and handed it to Jen. She opened it, her hands shaking slightly. As she read through the papers, her expression went from confusion to shock and then to fury. What is this BS? She demanded. These are lies. They're all documented. You've been served, I said calmly. Her voice immediately went up an octave. You've been recording me? Perfectly legal here, and very informative, especially your conversations with Vanessa about taking my house when the time comes. Vanessa grabbed the papers and started scanning them frantically. This won't hold up. The house is marital property, regardless of when you bought it. Not in this state. Not with a documented history of financial separation and her contribution of exactly 0 to the mortgage or upkeep. You can't kick me out of my own home, Jen said, nearly hysterical. It never was yours. And yes, I can and will. I'll fight this, she threatened. I'll tell everyone what you did, how you tricked me. Go ahead. She started crying then, using those manipulative sobs she had perfected over the years, the ones that used to make me back down, apologize, and give in. Not anymore. You have until tomorrow afternoon to pack your essentials, I said. The court will likely give you a few weeks to remove the rest of your belongings. Supervised. This isn't over, Vanessa hissed, putting her arm around Jen. You're right, I agreed. But it's closer than you think. The judge ruled in my favor. As expected, the evidence was overwhelming. Jen was given 30 days to remove her belongings, but she could not live in the house during the divorce proceedings. She moved in with Vanessa, who quickly got tired of having her sister as a permanent house guest. Turns out, living with someone who contributes nothing isn't nearly as fun when you're the one footing the bill. Within 2 weeks, they were fighting constantly. My lawyer had connected me with a financial advisor who helped me protect my assets during the divorce. We documented every penny I'd earned, every investment I'd made, and every bill I'd paid during the marriage, building an ironclad case that Jen had no claim to any of it. Jen's lawyer, not Vanessa's friend Rachel, but a court-appointed attorney after Rachel reviewed the evidence and declined to take the case, advised her to accept the settlement offer my lawyer had prepared. The house remained mine as a premarital asset. I kept my 401k and pension intact.
I paid no spousal support. She kept her car, which was in her name, and received a one-time payment of $10,000, far less than what she wanted but more than she deserved. She fought it at first, still convinced she could get half of everything. But as the evidence continued piling up and her position weakened, she eventually capitulated. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. The day she came to get the last of her things, she tried one more angle, one final Hail Mary. Her makeup was smudged. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week, and her hair was pulled into that messy, "I'm having a breakdown" bun. Vanessa had apparently kicked her out, and word was they'd been fighting nonstop. CrossFit Matt had ghosted her too. "I still love you, Dave," she said, standing in the entryway of what was now firmly my house again. "We could start over. I've learned my lesson." I just looked at her. "No, Jen, that's not fair. I made a mistake." "Goodbye, Jen," I said, closing the door behind her as she left. That was 6 months ago. The divorce is final now. I kept everything that mattered to me. My house, my truck, and my dignity. I ran into Amanda at the hardware store last week, and we got coffee afterward. Nothing serious, just conversation. She asked if I was ready to date again. I told her I'm deliberately staying single for now. Life goes on better than